back to the channel. This is SeamstressAtArms, and this is part of a series that I'm going to be doing that I need a clever title for, so maybe you guys can help me with that. But basically, I want to create a book club for crafting. So once or twice a month, I'm gonna put out a tutorial for a project and then kind of have it a like craft along with me sort of thing. Create a hashtag for Instagram or Facebook, and I just want to create a community and kind of everybody share what they do and see what other people come up with. So this is part one of that series and that whole idea, really. So this is gonna be a little guinea pig, and like I said, this is part one, where we are going to be learning to Lucet braid or make historical cording. So yeah, enjoy. We're going to be making this guy, which is our basic Lucet cord, and this one in particular is aimed at being the drawstring of a pouch. We are, of course, as ever, joined by the seamstress kitty Zoe. She is sporting our fabulous creation that I streamed on Twitch. This is our first two-part stream, which is her lovely lizard frill cone of shame. So check out Twitch tv./SeamstressAtArms for that. But anyway, let's get started. So first off, my favorite resource is this guy, which is Variations on Renaissance Cord Lucet Braiding. I highly recommend this book. The cat is running off with my example. Highly recommend this book. I will post a link in the description to where I found it on Amazon. Now, as far as what you'll need, I have done this, obviously in my example, I've made it with wool cording, or wool roving, which is actually this stuff. I'm a fan of using materials as close to historical as I can, but I am also on a shoestring budget like most of us. So my favorite source for roving that I can afford at the moment, that's, you know, machine done, easily available, good old craft stores like Michael's and Joann's, is Patton's Classic Wool Roving. I have it in all sorts of colors, and obviously not all of them are historically accurate, but most of the time you can find, you know, winter white. So they also make 3-ply yarn, again, comes in lots of colors. This is mixed natural. So basically, if you don't know about yarn, ply means they've taken this, which is roving, which is just fibers. See, I can just pull it apart. These are just fibers that have been carded so that they're all in the same direction, and then it's been spun in just a single twist. You can untwist it and it's just fibers. So it's been into a single twist. You can, this is obviously quite fluffy, but you can twist it quite tight and it gets quite strong. So this has been twisted and like that, spun very fine, and then 3 of them have been spun together in the opposite direction so that they stay together, so that the friction of the twist holds it all together. And then again, even more strong, you can hear it sing a little bit because it's stronger. But it's up to you what you use. You can also get good old-fashioned acrylic, and even get little hanks of yarn for super cheap, again at a craft store somewhere like Michael's. Or I have made it out of hemp, which in the US is easier to get a hold of than linen, but this is going to be quite stiff and you might have troubles learning on it, but if you want to make a hempen cord, do you, man. I have also made very fine lucets out of embroidery floss. I had an example, but of course it has been lost to the ether. So it really depends on what you want to do, and obviously it just depends on your project. So as far as tools are concerned, I've got a beautifully made, fancy walnut wood, handmade lucet or lucet fork. And I also have a little jerry-rigged pair of chopsticks that you can either use the fat end or the skinny end, which I started with the skinny end, and I tested out the skinny end, and I think this time we'll try the fat end just to make sure our loops are nice and big. But yeah, so these are our two high and low tech means of doing some cording. This guy is from Etsy. I unfortunately got it as a gift, so I don't know entirely who it was that we got it, or that they got it from to give to me. But I have found a lovely shop that is selling 3D printed lucet forks or lucets with and without the handle. I believe they start at about $10 before shipping and all that jazz. I will link them in the description. Highly recommend if you want the actual tool, and like me, you're on a little shoestring budget. And yeah, in the meantime, you can try my little Macgyvered method here with a couple of chopsticks and a hair tie. I've also seen people do this with a couple of pencils, again tied together, or a rubber band. I think the rubber band is nice, or hair tie is nice, because you get a little bit of give, because if it's gonna wiggle, you might as well make it wiggle to your advantage so that you can really get everything to behave itself. So yeah, we're gonna start by learning to cast on and do the good old single thread cord with, you know, no turn. So there is a way that you're whoop, 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 back and forth, but I find this guy, it's pretty straightforward. It's my favorite. It's good for making good old fashioned, you know, simple, plain utility cord. It's got a bit of give to it. It's got a little bit of stretch. This particular one I've got here as my example, I use to hold my hat on for my Landsknecht or Landsknecht hat, my big teller barrette. So yeah, I'm a fan, and this video has, you know, multiple uses. My aim today is to teach you how to make a little historical cord for part 2 of this particular project for the month of February, which is going to be a little drawstring bag. So let's get started. First off, we're gonna go with the fancy tool made for purpose. We're gonna start with the lucet in our non-dominant hand. For me, it's my left, and it's just gonna be just here. And with our yarn up above us, we're going to bring our yarn across, just straight across. And this guy is going to go over the left and under the right, and just hang out straight across. We're going to take the rest of our feeding end, that the loop is under the loop we're about to create is under my thumb, and we're going to bring it under the left and over the right. You might want to give yourself a little extra, and that's perfectly fine. So now our loose end is going to go up, under, and down. So now we've created a little knot there, and that we can pull that tight, and it knots around that. Or, because our next thing is going to be it's going to be around our left horn, or left side, we are going to just bring that whole knot, like you see there, just to the center. because this is where our Lucet's going to start. Now we have 2 nice even loops, and we've got our working end ready to go. So we're going to go and, holding this straight up, we're going to turn it lefty-loosey so that it's crossed over the top like that. So that is then going to go boop, over. So our working end is always going to be working towards the middle. Now we created a loop where from our knot it's going down, under, over, and through this little gap, this little negative space that we've created. So then we're going to pull that snug-ish, nothing crazy, but holding tension here so that our knot doesn't run away with us. But you gotta find a balance so that you're not yanking everybody everywhere, but it's also not totally getting away from you. So that bottom loop is coming up over the top of that loop we just created, and then ideally we want to be able to just pull tight and everybody behaves themselves. That's not always the case, that's okay. You can take it 1 loop at a time, and I'll do that in the next time. So now we've gone left, now we're going to go right. So take straight up, righty-tighty, oops, righty-tighty, so that our working end is going into this gap, and then our loop is going over this horn. So again, we are going from our knot, down, under, over, through. So now we've got 2 parallel loops. Our bottom loop is going to come over the top. Careful not to mix them up. Over the top of our horn. And then this guy's going to settle back down in this lovely little curve that all Lucets have, and it makes your life easier. And again, ideally you could pull it all smooth, but if not, that's okay. So, because it's all interwoven, all connected, like crochet or indeed knitting, then you can take up slack everywhere. So, the easiest way is to figure out who's who. So, this guy can pull that way, and this guy can pull that way, and then everything goes through. So it's a little figure 8. So ideally, like I said, you can do it all at once, because this guy is going here, 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 here. So just pull it nice and snug without being crazy pants. And we're going to, because again, we can see where we're going, or where we just were, because that's what's going to be connected to our working end. So whatever can be loosened or pulled tight from our working end or our feeding end, that's where we just were. So in a simple chord, that means we're not going there again. We're gotta go left and then right and then left and right. It's pretty simple. Like I said, starting is always the hardest, and once you get a rhythm down, super easy. That's how we start, and that's how we continue. We're just gonna go left, right, until we've got a nice long chord. So you can kind of see that we've started to create these little, oops, it's gonna go this way. Started to create these little V's that look very much like a braid. We've started to create that here. Hi, cat. Go on. Started to create that here, and then on the back is gonna be this little like 6-strand braid sort of look, where it's kind of more like a weave in the back and a braid in the front. So yeah, now we're gonna try a little DIY Macgyver method. So you don't have to have super duper fancy schmancy materials, especially if you're learning. And just like in sewing and in costume design or just making your own garments, a lot of people, and I always recommend it, you should, especially if you're just teaching yourself how to do this, practice. Do it with cheap materials first. In the case of sewing, this is called a mock-up. and or toile if you're going to be super fancy and French about it. So yeah, if you are like, oh, well, I'm gonna make this really fancy thing, we're gonna make a silk cord and it's gonna go on this really fancy wool thing, start with, you know, if you're gonna make a fancy trim, start with some cotton embroidery floss. Or if you're gonna make a fancy tie for your hat, but you don't know what you're doing, but you have, you know, mom has some cheap acrylic and you have a couple of chopsticks or a couple of pencils and a hair tie, like, do that. Go to the dollar store, go to a craft store, they have little hanks of acrylic yarn. The thrift store, somebody somewhere has guaranteed donated a hank of yarn, a skein of yarn to the thrift store, and you're gonna pick it up nice and cheap, and you're gonna figure out what the heck you're doing, and then if you like it, if it's what you want to do, pick up a fancy Lucet, or follow the link in my description and get a little, like, good enough for now Lucet. Get it in a fun color, $10 plus shipping, you know, then you can really teach yourself how to do it nice, and then, you know, if it's just for that one project, cool. Store it away till you need it again. Or, like me, I take this to events, and I sit around and Lucet with my fancy wooden Lucet fork. And, you know, you can do it as a demonstration. You can dress up all fancy and historical like I do and teach people how to do it, or go to, you know, a Renaissance fair or whatever. You can start as basic as you want. You can be as ratchet as you like, and then if that gets the job done, fine. If you want to go fancy, go fancy. Obviously, the correct tools for the job will always make your life easier. But if you just need to get it done, or just want to figure out if you even like it, do not drop, you know, $100 on new supplies and get into this whole hobby that, oops, I needed like 2 feet of cord for this one project and I'm never going to do it again, and I have all these supplies that I don't need. We all do that, especially, you know, crafters do that all the time. I'm gonna do a new hobby, drop all this stuff. I don't really like it. Now I have this stuff, and then we become hoarders. It's a problem. Anyway, let's do the Macgyver method and see how it works. So, again, good old-fashioned, cheap acrylic yarn that I think I got from a friend. I don't know. And then 2 chopsticks and a hair tie. So I've got it so that I've got right over left. I think that's going to be easiest because I'm right-handed. So this guy is going to be under my thumb, and that's going to be between my fingers. So again, I've done a lot of crochet in my time, so that just kind of feels right to me. So, do you, man. Do what feels right to you, and whatever you think is going to make your life easiest. So again, working with my yarn up above me, I've got, or in front of me I suppose, I've got my loose end, and we're going to go over the top. And this guy is going to go underneath the right hand. And then we're going to take our working guy, go straight up, under the left, over the right, and then our loose end is going to go straight up, under, and down. So then we've got this little loopy guy, little hitchy guy, and we're going to bring it to the center. So we've got this weird little hitch thing. So, lefty-loosey, and plop it over the top. So again, we're going straight up, under our horn, under our stick, and then through our little gap that we've made here to create a loop. And then our bottom loop. See, again, this is where I think if you're a beginner, this might be helpful to be able to scooch them together, so you're not fighting your own loops here. Whoops. Messed that up. We're going to try that again. Whoop. But that's why we're learning, right? not a big deal if you just have to start over and try it again. Okay, you gotta stop. Go away, cat. You gotta stop the licking. It's incredibly annoying. Okay. Over the top. And we're going to, lovely little stain. Okay. Straight across. Over, under. Under, over. Up. Around. And I didn't really have to pull it tight, or pull it centered there, because it just was. So now we're going to take it straight up, turn it like you're turning a screw, lefty-loosey, to create our little loop, and it goes whoop over the top. And bottom loop goes over top loop and off the horn, and then sort everything out, pull it tight. Get everything, and it's not important to be super perfect every time, but, and you also don't want to like super pull this very first part tight, because it's not quite a knot yet. You really got to do your first two and then it starts. So righty-tighty, righty-tighty, whoop, pull it snug, swoop the loop. Again, like that might be really handy, a little give there. So again, you can either pull it from here, but it's not really going to do anything nice from there that time. So the back side of this figure eight, we're gonna, or I guess the front, oops. It's a little trickier with this particular yarn, but you just gotta figure it out. So you pull it tight. This loop's still all big, so pull it tight. Pull the back side, pull that side tight, pull the front side, get everything sorted. It's a little ugly in the beginning, but really you just gotta start. You just gotta try. So again, this is where we were, because that is where our feeding end is. So it means we're going to the left. Lefty-loosey, pop over the top, swoop the loop. Whoops, we lost our loops. So this guy is just loose now. That's okay. You can pop that guy right back on. Start again. Lefty-loosey, pop on top, and it helps. I do this. I hold that little end so that this top isn't gonna be quite so loose. And then swoop the loop over the top. Make sure we don't let anything escape. We're going to pull this end tight, pull the bottom tight first, and then make sure everything is skookum. So pull that loop a little tighter, maybe not quite that tight, and then take the slack out. It's complicated, but really, you just gotta find the rhythm. Righty-tighty, swoop the loop, pull snug. Pull snug. Lefty-loosey, pop on top, swoop the loop, pull tight, pull tight. So, again from there, onward. So, this concludes my super basic tutorial on Lucet cording. So, like I said, from here your possibilities are endless, and you can use this for all sorts of stuff. And we are going to, which is exactly, you can use this for all sorts of stuff. There are super fancy ways to make this pretty, and you can make little loops on the edges, turn this into trim, sew it onto projects as trim and, you know, decoration, stuff like that. You could even, like, I've even seen people just sew this stuff in pretty patterns onto fabric and make it into a pretty garment. Or it's just good old-fashioned utility cording. So we're going to take this and apply it to our next video, which is a project involving cording. So I hope that makes sense to you. Leave questions in the comments, and like, share, subscribe, all that jazz.